the Statue of Liberty in popular culture. So in other words, it'll be kind of the history of that famous landmark in literature, movies, TV, even music. So I think that'll be very informative and entertaining. So please try to join us for that. And then we have, our Arts Alive concert in September is on September 19th, which is a Sunday, of course, at 2 p.m. We have the History Singers joining us, who are going to be performing something they call the Generation Gap. And we're going to decide, us, the audience, who has the better music, the World War II generation or the baby boomers. And to kind of prove that point, they're going to present the songs in pairs. In other words, a song from the 60s, a song from the 40s, the World War II era. And it's present them in pairs, and you can decide one by one or at the end. Maybe you think you already know who had the best music, but maybe you'll change your mind. We will see. And then on Thursday, September 30th at 7 o'clock. Now I have to read this title because it's a mouthful. Coal Swamps, Coral Reefs, and Continental Glaciers. We have an author, Raymond Wiggers, who is going to lecture from his book, Geology Underfoot in Illinois. It's kind of a geologist travelogue of Illinois. He's going to take us through very many scenic and scientifically significant parts of our state and prove to us that our state is beautiful and it's not just flat and boring. And also, it'll be a footprint, a history of our planet. So I think that will be just great. It sounds really interesting to me. So I'm looking forward to that one a lot. All the programs are virtual, so sign up on the website as usual. And I hope we'll see you at all of them. Now we can get to tonight's program, which I desperately need. I could turn my camera around and kind of show my area here about how much I need to declutter, but I don't think I will. I will just let our speaker, Jennifer Barnes, help us get out of our clutter messes and get organized. And she's even going to teach us what a control center is and how to use it. So please welcome Jennifer Barnes.
All right. Thank you so much, Shanna. Thanks for having me. And thank you guys for spending time on another screen. If you're screened out, I apologize, but I'm honored that you would take the time this evening to listen and to spend time with us and learn a little bit. So thank you so much for doing that. I want to tell you, I like to use the chat feature if we can. So I'm going to give you an example of kind of what I usually do. Things like, if you can tell me who is in your house, you can just say, it can be yourself and kids and put their ages, or just yourself, or yourself and 4 cats, or yourself and 2 dogs, yourself and a partner, it doesn't matter. So if you can just put in the chat, just put really quick who is in your house, it just helps me to know who I'm talking to, right? Because sometimes when we're in person, it's easier to interact and things like that. So I love to use the chat feature. So if you can I'll ask you quick questions like that. So if you guys don't mind, just putting who is, so I see a couple of people doing that. That just gives me an idea who I'm talking to. And I also like to kind of customize what I'm talking about to whoever I'm talking to. And so that helps a lot. So right now, what I'm going to do as you respond like that, I'm going to share my screen. So if you have gotten the handouts that Janet probably sent you, that's great. If not, don't worry about it. I'm showing you a PowerPoint and you're going to be able to see the stuff right there. So I'm going to share my screen. And 1 second here, let me do that. And again, just bear with us because we are doing technology, right? It's always good until it's not. So we're just going to hope that everything goes really smoothly this evening. All right, so here is today we're talking about organizing 101, hitting the clutter hotspots. And thank you so much for putting, there's lots of different combinations of who's in our house and things like that. Again, gives me an idea of what we're talking about and who I'm talking to. So organizing 101, hitting the clutter hotspots. And I'm going to give you a little bit of information about me. My name is Jennifer Barnes. My husband, Craig, and I have 5 children. So we had 5 kids in 5 years. We have a set of twins, which is how that's physically possible. So you can see that picture. This picture was actually only taken about 2 weeks ago. I did a mandated, all of you must be in the state of Illinois and off of work. And we had a family picture taken, much to their dismay. So my twins are actually not the 2 redheads and not the 2 blondes. They're actually the blonde and the redhead girls nearer to the outside. So just to give you an idea, I only put my family here so that you know that I understand chaos. I think it's really frustrating. I remember like 18, 19 years ago, I heard an organizer speak, and she gave me some really great ideas, but then I found it was just her in an apartment, which is absolutely fine. But I remember going like, I can organize just for me. It's all these other people, right? Or all these other situations. So I just remember being frustrated. I felt like she didn't understand chaos. So I might not be walking exactly in your shoes, but please know, it just, just rest assured that I understand chaos and I understand organizing with different personalities. And you can see my dog there. So I understand organizing with pets, which, believe it or not, right, is its own struggle sometimes, because they have their own brand of chaos. So that's just a little information on me, just to give you, just a background. I'm a professional organizer and speaker, and I've been doing this for a little bit over 20 years. I speak all over the country. I always tell people I grew my business as I grew my kids. So as they got older, I expanded my radius of speaking. And just during the pandemic time, it went nationwide versus just Midwest, because it got easier, right? Because of the virtual abilities. So I speak on organizing, parenting, marriage, relationships, communication, everything having to do with that. And I absolutely love it. If I can leave you feeling a little more encouraged and a little less alone, then I feel like I've done my job. So that's the first thing I do. The second is I do have individual organizing clients. I work with people to teach them to organize and organize their spaces. What makes me, I think, a little bit unique is, one, I really work on having real organizing for real people doing real life. So I always tell people, I don't live in HDTV. You don't live in HDTV. We need to organize in the real world. So I work really hard with that. I customize it to the people. And my greatest joy is when a client comes back to me and says, look what I did and organized by myself based on what you taught me. So probably not a great business model. I'm constantly working myself out of a job, but I absolutely love it. And I love that when people can do it without me. So it's not so much just a space change, it's a life change. And so I teach people how to look at spaces differently, look at things differently, and how to not get stuck again. So to get uncluttered and then not get cluttered again, because I think that is how it should be. I always tell people I can make anything look nice, but I'd rather you learn how to do it yourself and learn how to maintain it than just have me come in and make your closet look nice and then leave. So I work very custom like that and love to teach people to do it. So I do have individual clients that I work with all the time, from Milwaukee to south of Chicago, so all over the place. And the cool thing the past year and a half has been virtual organizing. So you know that virtual organizing is a good option for you if you feel like you just need a little bit of advice, external, like an outside perspective on a space, and then someone to get you started, and then maybe some accountability, but you're pretty good doing it on your own. You just need a little motivation to get started and a little accountability. So those are the people that virtual organizing is good for, because it's not quite so hands-on, and it's allowed me to help people organize that are across the country, which has been really cool. So that's a little bit about me. So you know that I've been doing this for 20 years. And, and I always tell people my crazy family was definitely a great lab of learning to be organized and live life in the real world. So that's a little bit of information on me. Thank you so much for putting, those of you who put in there who is in your house, that helps a lot. So now we're going to talk about organizing. I want you to do me a favor. So many times people think, oh, good organization is everything has a place and everything in its place. I'm sure you guys have all heard that, right? Everyone's heard that. So I'm going to tell you, I want you to throw that out. Because good organization, everything can have a place. That's great. but it doesn't mean everything's always put away, right? Sometimes life happens and we don't put things away. It doesn't mean we're not organized. It just means life happened. So when you want, the difference is when you want to clean up, or you say it's time to clean up and you have a breath, you can do it easily and everyone knows where everything goes. So good organization is everything has a place and there's a system, yes. But it doesn't necessarily mean that everything is always put away. If I knew how to make every person always put everything away, I would own a private island somewhere and it would just be a whole different life. Because the bottom line is that's just not reality. We don't all, life gets in the way and we don't always put everything away. But I will tell you, you definitely want to have places for things and have everyone know where it all goes, even if they don't put it there. Okay. So people say to me all the time, Jen, you're a professional organizer. Your house must be meticulous. And I look at them and I'm like, I live with 6 other people. And let me tell you away. So I definitely have everything. I have places for everything and I have systems and that is all set, but it doesn't mean they always take off their shoes and put them where they're supposed to be. Okay. So I'll talk to you a little bit about how to live in the real world and do that. But I just want you to know that you're not failing if everything's not always put away. Okay. The second thing is good. Or people often think I'm going to organize so that I can do 10 times as many things. And I want you to throw that out too, because I want you to organize so you can give more work away and other people can take the responsibility. You can delegate to other people and there can be more independence for everybody else. So organizations should breed more independence, responsibility, and delegation, not more work for the organizer. So when you're organized, like you guys know this, if maybe not in your home, but maybe at work, right? You get organized so that you can delegate easier. That's what I want. That's kind of a test for you is, can someone come into my space and do and find everything easily? That's kind of a barometer for, are you organized well? And we'll talk about how to do that. But I just want you to think of that overarching statement is, does this make it easier for me to give my work away? That's what it should be. That's how you know you should organize. You're organized. Now, another thing with organizing is it's very personal, right? You guys just mentioned who's in your house. So everyone has it different. So it's very personal. My life is different than yours, which is different than your neighbors, which is different than other people on listening to this. So it's very personal. And I want you to be where you are and know that you're organizing for you and for your space and for who is in your home. And that's okay. So I tell people every time you hear any advice, whether it be from me or anyone else, I want you to take it, look at it through your glasses and twist it and turn it and see how it fits into your life. And that's okay. Things can be tailor-made for you, right? On the other side of organizing, it's really broad, right? You can think of 10 different TV shows that are talk about organizing. I'm sure you can name, right, tons of magazines. Forget Pinterest, so many different Pinterest sites on organizing. It's such a broad topic. I probably have about 15 to 20 different talks on organizing itself. This is one of them. So I tell people this so that you know if there's a certain thing that you wanted to hear in this presentation and I don't specifically touch on it, I sincerely apologize. There's just so much to be said on organizing. And this is just one of the talks. So organizing is very broad. And it's also very personal. So it's kind of a weird topic in that way, but it's good to be aware of. All right. So now letting go. You might be like, talk about organizing already. This does not have anything to do with it. It actually really does. Because what I have found is comparisons are actually a roadblock to getting anything done. So how many people, just put a 1 in the chat, if you feel like you have been on social media more in the past year and a half than ever before in your life. So just put a quick 1 in the chat if you feel like you have been, again, on social media more in the past year and a half than before. And I imagine we're going to start to see ones because this is a thing, right? We did that for connection, especially before. But we have to be careful because comparisons, when we are comparing on social media, ourselves to somebody else, we are comparing our backstory with somebody else's highlight reel. That is a dangerous game. So let me say that again. When we are comparing on social media, we're looking on social media and we're comparing, we are comparing our backstory to somebody else's highlight reel. That's not fair, right? And it's not a fair comparison. And what it does is it can make us feel less than. It can make us feel like I'm never going to measure up. Why bother, right? If you can't look at Pinterest without feeling horrible about your situation, don't look at it. Okay. There's nothing wrong with getting good ideas from Pinterest. Nothing wrong with it. But if it makes you just feel bad and kind of cripples you, don't look at it anymore. I'll be honest. I can't look at it sometimes for food things or cooking because I'm like, I never looked like that, right? So we need to let that go. We need to let comparisons go and know that it's not fair to us. If we don't let it go, it becomes a roadblock and it keeps us from doing things, right? So not just comparisons of social media, but comparisons of magazines. Keep in mind, like Real Simple magazine, if there's a family room or a kitchen that's on there and it looks so pristine, remember, no one cooks in those magazine spreads, right? And even if there's a person in there pretending to cook, they're not allowed to even be on that magazine spread until 2 minutes before that picture is taken. So it's not real life, right? We don't live in Real Simple magazine. We don't live on HGTV, right? So just let go of that comparison. Know that it's not realistic. Let it go. Give ourselves permission to let go of that. Okay. That's getting rid of one roadblock to getting things done. The next thing that we need to let go of is things that don't match our priorities. And again, you might be like, John, come on, organizing, stop talking about this stuff. But this is what I found. True story. About 18 years ago, I was talking to somebody and they said, Jen, can you come in and organize my craft area? And I was like, yes, I can do that. So I was talking to her and I realized she doesn't even like crafts. I'm not even joking. And I was like, why do you want me to organize your craft area? And she goes, well, I should have a nice craft area, right? And I was like, oh my goodness, no. If it's not something that's one of your priorities, let it go. And you might be like, well, that's ridiculous. I would never do that. I will tell you, I see it all the time. One of the things I do is when I meet with people before they even hire me or anything, I ask them, what are your top 10 priorities in life? And I do that because what I have found is so many times we have these projects on our to-do list. We have these organizing things that we want to do. And when we really think about it, some of them really don't match up with what we're saying is important. So letting go of the things that don't match our priorities is another way of letting go of a roadblock to something. Because a lot of times the things that don't match our priorities, when they're not a priority, that's part of the reason we're not motivated to do it or to organize it or to maintain the organization of it, because it's not important to us, but we never look at that. So an example from my own life is I always tell people, I feed my family and I feed my family pretty well. I don't like to cook. I hate cooking. My husband is a really good cook. I learned to cook purely because my schedule was more flexible and we had all these kids. So it was a little easier for me some days to make dinner. So I learned and I do a decent job, but I don't like it. So the organization level in my kitchen can be down here. I have friends that cook with spices I've never heard of. And some of you guys maybe cook with gadgets that I never even knew existed. So the level of organization in your kitchen or my friend's kitchen needs to be up here. I've had to let that gap go and say, it's okay. For me, it's okay because mine can be here. So, and lest you think that'd be easy for me, sometimes I look at pictures of other people's kitchens and be like, oh, mine should be like that. And then I'm like, no, let it go. Yours is fine for you, and that's okay. So let go of the things that don't match your priorities. Otherwise, you're spending energy and time on things that you don't need to be working on. Okay. So that is your last thing that I want you to let go of. Now we're going to talk about organizers, type of organizers. I know it sounds like belly buttons, right? That's not what I'm talking about. Innie and outie. And innie is someone who likes everything behind closed doors. They put everything in the drawers, put everything in the cabinets. They don't need the visual cues. An outie is someone who almost gets heart palpitations when someone comes and takes their pile and puts it away. Now, I want to clarify this. An innie is not necessarily neat, and an outie is not necessarily a slob. An outie just needs visual cues in order to remember things. An innie doesn't need those visual cues, okay? So please, again, know that an outie is not necessarily a slob and innie is not necessarily neat. So just your gut reaction, I want you to put in the chat if you think you're an innie or an outie. Just curious. And again, what I will do is I'll show you how to get the visual cues without having piles out. Because make no mistake, a pile of paper really doesn't give you any visual cues. It doesn't. We don't know what's in the pile of paper. It doesn't give us visual cues. So we learn to get the visual cues in other ways other than having everything out. Okay, so I see a couple of people saying innie, outie. And again, the reason I ask this is because if you think about it, when you're organizing, if you organize a system, if I come in and organize a kitchen for somebody and I make it so everything is all put away and there are no visual cues out, there's no labels, there's no reminder notes, anything. Do you think that'll work? Do you think it'll stick? No, it won't, because you'd be going against the needs of that person. Okay, so to know innie or outie will help you to organize, because if somebody's outie and I see a bunch of them coming through, that means you need to have visual cues. So there's ways to do visual cues without having everything out, and I'll show you some of those. Okay, the other question I get, there's two questions I get, is, Jen, what if I am a combination? Okay, I will say this. This is really true. A lot of times, and again, love my husband, love my son, absolutely fine. But a lot of times men will tend to, if they are one way, if you're an outie, a lot of times the man will tend to stay an outie. It doesn't matter how many, if they get married, it doesn't matter if they get older, it doesn't matter if they have kids, they will stay an outie and always be an outie. Okay, so a lot of times the men will, if you are one way, you will stay that way regardless of what happens in your life. Oftentimes, and again, this is a stereotype, but I've seen it to be very true, is a lot of times women will be a certain way and then will get in a relationship, have children, get a career, whatever it is, and will change and often become a combination. And a lot of that is because we tend to take on the characteristics of the people we're organizing for. Okay, so that's just what I've observed. If you're a combination, there's ways of making it so that you can have visual cues without having everything be all out. So you can use baskets, right? So you can have something out, but it is still contained. You can use labels. Labels give us a visual cue without having it be piles of things. So combination, that's very common to do. Another question I get is, what do you do if you live with someone who is opposite of you? Okay, so put a 1 in the chat if you live with someone who is opposite of you. Just curious, because again, there's nothing wrong with that. Oftentimes that happens, right? A lot of times that happens. We're opposite of the people we're with. So if you do, there's a couple things you can do. Is one, there's certain areas in our homes, right, that tend to be more one person's than another's. An example is, like I said, my husband is a high school teacher. Until the pandemic, he never worked from home. Never worked from home. Now, I'm self-employed. I work from home. I have my office. So the home office in our house is really more mine than my husband's. Okay, that's what I mean by that. So we organize the office to fit my needs and what I need to do. Okay, versus in our house, the garage is really my husband's. He likes to do outdoor stuff. He's woodworking, all of that. We organize the garage more for his needs, and that's okay. So that's one thing you can do if you're opposite. Another thing is, it's just really helpful to understand how, if someone's an innie or an outie, because sometimes they see, if somebody is an innie and they're putting all your piles away constantly, it's a little less irritating if you know that they're doing it purely because it innately makes them uncomfortable and the need they have to not have those visual cues. So they're not just being a jerk, they're doing it because they instinctively don't need that visual cue. Okay, and the same thing, if someone's an outie and they're always taking things out, it's a lot easier to understand and not be irritated at the person if you know they're doing it because instinctively they need those visual cues and it makes them feel uncomfortable to have it all away. Okay. So I think understanding people makes them easier to live with. And really honestly. So, and if you guys have any kids, you can tell if they are an innie or an outie pretty young. You really can pretty young. And if you're organizing an area for a child and they need the visual cues, then make sure you have labels and you have this stuff to give them the visual cues. Otherwise, you're working, it's like you're swimming upstream and it's not going to work. So, innie or an outie, it's a really helpful thing to kind of understand and just know how the people are. So, there's that. All right, now we're going to talk about the 5 organizing principles. These 5 principles you can take and you can organize anything, anywhere. Okay, so after this, you can organize anything you want using these 5 principles. Okay, the very first one is small steps. I want you to break every project down into little steps. You don't have to be like, oh, that's a waste of time. No, bottom line is we don't usually have time. Massive numbers of hours at our disposal with nothing else to do. Okay, and if we do have massive number of hours to do whatever we want, we usually don't have the energy to do everything for those hours, right? So I just tell people this, and this is so true. When we're younger and earlier in life, right, you have unlimited time and you have unlimited energy, right? I mean, it does. When you're a late teens, early 20s, we have unlimited time and unlimited energy. You get a little bit older, you have a job, you get in relationships, whatever it is, we don't have unlimited time anymore. We have no time. We have decent energy, but not much time. And then you get out the other end in retirement, and you might have unlimited time again, but we don't have unlimited energy. So there's one time in life where we have unlimited time and energy, and we don't appreciate it. We don't. So what happens is we never switch our thinking from blocks of hours to blocks of minutes. And the reality is most of us don't have the unlimited time and energy. So we need to look at things into small steps. Look at things that we can do in 5, 10, 15-minute increments of time. And I have a time and task management talk that I talk a lot about that and how to do that. But the bottom line is I want you to take your projects and break them down into small steps. So put a 2 in the chat if you've ever had clean or organize your garage on your to-do list. So put a 2 in the chat if you've ever had clean or organize your garage or your storage area on your to-do list. And I am sure if you're not telling me, if you don't have put a 2 there, you're not telling me the truth, because I will tell you this. All of us, right? At some point, we've had this daunting project that sits there. And the reason we have all of these, like organize garage and organize your shed on your to-do list, and it haunts your to-do list and it stays there forever. The reason we have that is because it's such a big project. And remember, we don't have unlimited time and energy. So it sits there because we like, I'm never going to have the time to do this. So I want you to break your project down into little tiny steps. If you're using the garage example, I want you to walk out of your house and you're in your garage. Not only do you break it down to small steps, I want you to work methodically around the space. Don't skip around. So you walk out of your house into your garage, look to your left, start corner to corner, top to bottom, okay? And just do one shelf, do the next shelf, you can organize the athletic balls, the athletic shoes, the gardening equipment, the sand toys, whatever it is, little tiny steps, and work methodically around the space, corner to corner, top to bottom. When we break it down to small steps and we work methodically, it does a couple things. It shows us progress. We can cross off the one step. Like I did the gardening equipment. That's one thing. Took me 10 minutes. I did that. Check it off. When we can check things off, we are motivated to do the next step. When we see progress, we're motivated to do the next step. When you work methodically around a space, then you can see progress. It's when we skip around. How many people have done this? We skip around. We're like, start here, go to that corner, go to that corner. We finish an hour of organizing or cleaning and we go, what did I do? Nothing looks done, right? We've all been there. So work methodically. So when life happens and you get interrupted because it happens, you can look and go, you know what? I did that one shelf. All right. Now you work, again, corner to corner, top to bottom. You work down the next shelf. You get interrupted again. Wow, I did 2 shelves. You can see the progress versus skipping around. So small steps is huge. Another thing I want you to do is set a timer. Set a timer, because this is the thing. Tell me this. And put a 1 in the chat if this has ever happened to you. This is the thing. If someone calls you and says, hey, I'm in town, can I come visit you? And you're like, sure, I'll be over in 20 minutes. Hangs up the phone. Are we not the most productive people in the entire world during that 20 minutes, right? Put a 1 in the chat if you are the most productive people in the world, if you have 20 minutes before someone's coming over. Hands down, right? All of a sudden, we are crazy good. So that's because we have a timer. And when we have a timer, our brain goes into efficiency mode and we work differently. If you don't believe me, think of this. If you're a teacher, I don't know if we have any teachers here or anything, but if you're a teacher, remember, they don't sit there and go, whenever you get a chance, finish your math test. No one would get it done. What they do is they say, you have a math test? You have to finish it in 50 minutes, starting now, timer on. Kids go into efficiency mode, right? So timers are powerful, powerful things, okay? So we're breaking every project down into little steps. We're working methodically around the space, little step at a time, not skipping around, and we're setting a timer, okay? That's the first part. Second is declutter. Always declutter before you organize. So many times people are like, Jen, I got all these organizing supplies. Have you gone through the area and decluttered? No, I got all these organizing supplies. If you do that, you're going to end up trying to organize half of which you don't need. Organize things that you're not even wanting to keep. So I want you to always declutter first. Plus, decluttering is very freeing and feels really good. So what I do is I have 5 bins. These bins, your decluttering bins, you have to put in the exact spot that you are organizing. So if we're doing the garage, the exact corner you're going to start in, I want you to put these bins there. You are not allowed to leave the area that you're organizing. Because what happens when we leave the area we're going to organize? We get distracted, right? We leave the area, we go and we're like, oh, my coffee. Oh, the phone rings. Oh, I need to go do this. Oh, I need to put laundry in. Oh, that's on TV, right? We get distracted and we come back later and we haven't done it. So do not leave the area that you are organizing. Okay, so I want you, these are the decluttering bins. The first one is a garbage, just a throwaway bin. That's pretty self-explanatory. It can be a garbage bag, that's fine. Second is a put away bin. So everything that doesn't have a home in that exact spot, you're going to put in the put away bin. You are not allowed to leave that area, remember? So if it doesn't have a home in that spot, I want you to put in the put away bin. And then later, set the timer for 15 minutes, pick up your put away bin, walk around the house and put things away. Okay, but when you are decluttering, you stay in that area. So you have your put away bin. The third one is a file away. All that is a put away for paper. That's all that is. The fourth one is a giveaway. So anything you're going to give away, put it in there. And the last one is hideaway. Now, hideaway is one of those that when people are working with me, a lot of times they don't need the hideaway because we talk through, do you need this? Why are you thinking this? Maybe you don't need this. We talk through it. But a hideaway is if you're not sure, you don't think you need it, you're not ready to get rid of it, you put it in the hideaway bin. And this is the key. You give the hideaway bin to a friend and say, if I haven't asked you for anything in this within the month, you have my permission to donate it. Now, I'm going to tell you this. In 20 years, no one has ever taken anything out of the hideaway bin. I'm serious, dead serious. It's because it's our gut reaction when we know, our gut reaction, if we need something or not, is right on. It's when we go, well, maybe, ... That's when we trip ourselves up. So the hideaway bin gives you this safety net, but the bottom line is, if your gut reaction said you don't need it, you don't need it, and you won't even miss it. Okay, but the hideaway bin is, so the 5 bin decluttering bins are throw away, put away, remember, because we don't leave our area, file away, give away, and hide away. All right. So if you want, on my website, and this is just so if you want it on jborganizing.com, and I'll put that into the chat, is there at the top, there's a little banner, and there's no charge for this. So I'm just letting you know, it's a decluttering tip sheet that'll have some of this on there. So if you want, you can go ahead and it's a free download. So you can go ahead and do that. That's on my website. I'm just putting this in really quick, jborganizing.com if you want to. Anyway, so those are the decluttering bins. The third principle of organizing is condense. You have everything decluttered. Now I want you to condense like items together. So the example I always give is we don't need 10 places in our house for Scotch tape, right? How many people have 10 places in their house for Scotch tape? I think a lot of hands would go up, right? So you don't need 10 places in your house for Scotch tape. Put like items together, condense like items together. Another example is like in your pantry, right? Go ahead and, if you're gonna organize your pantry, condense like items together. Maybe you have all the pasta, you have all the rice, you have the cereal, and you condense like items together. When we do that, it is so much easier if we can say, if someone says, hey, where's the Scotch tape? What do? We go, well, it could be here, it could be here, it could be here, it could be here. And then we go, never mind, I'll go get it for you, right? We do that. But if you have one spot for it, they say, where's the Scotch tape? Right here, and they can go get it, remember? And then what's our statement of organizing? Good organization breeds more independence, delegation, and responsibility for everyone else, not more work for us. So when our like items are condensed together, it's easier for people to find the things and you don't have to do the work, okay? So condense like items together. The fourth principle is contain. Once you condense the like items together, once you have all the Scotch tape together, contain it in a bin or basket, contain it. When we contain it, containment principle does a couple things. It says to us, oh, my Scotch tape bin is full. I don't need any more. I need to stop buying it, right? Containment principle tells our brain stop, or we look and go, my Scotch tape bin is almost empty. I need to buy more. So containment principle tells us to stop or to go. And that's really important. What happens when we don't contain ourselves? We expand and we expand and we expand. So here's a good example. Think of your pantry. If you have your chips in one bin, if you have chips all in a bin, then when that bin is full, we go, I don't need any more chips. Easy makes our shopping list easier, okay? Or we look and go, man, my chip bin is empty. I need more chips. If we don't contain it, what happens? Our chips expand. They cover the whole shelf. They fall behind. We don't even know the chips are there, right? How many people in their pantry have had where when they do clean it out, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know there were 2 bags back there. So containing it keeps everything corralled. You know exactly where the things are. It helps you save money. It helps you know when to buy things or when to not. And it just makes things easier. So contain the items once you get all the category together. The last one is label, okay? So I always tell people the small steps in decluttering gets rid of all the junk. Condense and contain gets you organized. Labeling keeps you organized. So all the time people are like, I don't need to label. I know where it is. Well, wait a second. What was my main statement of organization? Is good organization should breed independence, delegation, and responsibility for everybody else. If you know where the stuff is, that doesn't matter. They need to know where it is so that you don't have to do the work, okay? If your pantry is labeled, it's easier for people to help you put groceries away instead of you doing it all yourself. If the Scotch tape is labeled, it's easier for people to find it and you don't have to get up and find it for them, okay? So here is my test for you. I want you to say, can you take yourself out of your house for a weekend, hopefully because you're on a tropical vacation, not anything bad. Can you take yourself out of your house for a weekend? And can someone else come in and do and find everything easily in your house? That's how you know if it's organized. And labeling is a key thing to keep that happening. Because remember, whether you know what it, you know, I know what's in the bin. That's nice. We want everybody else to know. Okay. So labeling, and be specific. You can't over label. No one is ever going to say, that's really gross. You labeled too much. They're not going to say that. Okay. So be specific and put it on there. Okay. So those are your 5 principles of organizing. You can do this. You can take these and you can apply them to anything, anywhere in your house if you methodically go through these, right? So that's like, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit one of the main hotspots. This is the control center Janet had mentioned. The control center is your daily life managing paper, information, and project center. This is where all the paper, information, and projects go through your house, daily life managing. So think of this, I call this the Monsoon Effect. So what does it do at 3 o'clock, and you guys can put this in the chat, what at 3 o'clock or so, every day, every afternoon in the summer in Florida, what does it do? What does it do, anyone? 3 o'clock every afternoon in the summer in Florida, what does it do? You guys know, it rains, right? It's not even just a trickle of rain, it's like a monsoon, tons and tons of rain. Now that rain would be so damaging if we didn't have what people call, some genius person invented gutters, right? So the gutters doesn't decrease the monsoon rain. It doesn't decrease the amount of rain. It just funnels it into one little spot on each side of the house. So the genius person who did it made it so it doesn't, these massive rains don't damage our shingles, they don't damage our siding, all that, because it funnels the water. It doesn't decrease the water, it makes it manageable. So your control center, I want you to think of as kind of a gutter or a funnel, and it funnels all the information and paper and daily life managing stuff into one spot. So I wish I could tell you how to decrease the information and paper and just stuff that comes your way every day. And I mean, there's obviously tips I can give on how to decrease paper, but I will tell you this, I don't know if you realize this, in the past 5 or 10 years, as digital has increased, our paper has actually increased. Isn't that crazy? People think paper is decreased. It's actually, they have done studies and they found that we are consuming more paper and more information than ever before. Craziness. So what I want is the control center is our funnel. It's less, so I can't necessarily decrease the amount of stuff that you're bombarded with, but you can make it so it's more manageable, okay? And your control center is your place. It's easier and less stressful to clean up one area piled with paper than it is 10 areas. So remember our containment principle? The control center is our container, right? Our spot for paper and information. So when we contain ourselves, we don't spread out. So our control centers are our place for daily life managing paper and information. Now, these are the components of your control center. Okay, the first thing is high traffic area. Has to be in a high traffic area. So many times people are like, you know, Jen, can you make a control center down the hall in my home office? And I look at them and I say, no, because it won't work. You might be like, well, that's really mean of you. You should do what the client wants you to do. No, this is the thing, is when life is happening, we don't walk down the hall and put our mail on the desk. We don't. When life is happening, I want you to, oh, someone has their mic on. When life is happening, I want you to put, if you walk into the house, okay, maybe you walk in the front door, or you walk in the garage door or whatever. When you walk in, where do you drop your mail or everything? So when the phone is ringing, when the dog is barking, when, I don't know, who knows what it is. When all life is happening, where do you drop everything? Put in the chat if you know, like, where do you drop everything? Where is it? Where in your house? Where is it going? I will say this, and if you're not, even if you're not writing it, I'm going to tell you, I would say in or near the kitchen, right? Kitchen counter, someone says. In or near, dining room table, in or near the kitchen. 100% of the time, 20 years of doing this, in or near the kitchen. When life happens, that's where we drop stuff. So if you do your control center in the home office down the hall, what's going to happen is you're going to still drop the stuff when life is happening in or near the kitchen. And then you're going to have your control center set someplace else, and it's not going to work. Okay, so high traffic area, your control center has to be in a high traffic area. Thank you guys. I mean, in or near the kitchen, you guys know. In these two pictures, the one on the right is a little tiny townhouse I did, and you can see the control center there. And it's just a little spot, but it's a dedicated place for all the paper and information. The other one is a lot of times newer homes will have the built-in desk areas in the kitchen. Those are perfect control centers. So I want you to think of this. I always tell people, the control center is also your legal dumping ground for paper. It's the place when life happens that you can just dump all of that paper. And you might be like, well, Jen, I want it to be organized. I don't want it to be dumped. Now remember, I'm going to show you how to organize it. But in real life, when life is happening, there are days we just have to dump our mail because we don't have time or energy or whatever it is to go through it. And that's okay. Contain it to one spot, then it is less stressful to clean one little control center spot piled high with paper than it is 10 spots. Okay, so don't stress if it gets piled with paper, because when you go, you know what, I'm going to clean it up, it's one spot. It is so much more doable. But I'm giving you a legal dumping ground. So high traffic area. Second part is flat surface to work. You have to have a flat surface. And this flat surface has to be dedicated to the paper and information and projects only. So people say to me, and you might think, gosh, it doesn't sound like she listens to her clients, but people say to me and they go, Jen, I don't need a flat surface just for my control center. I'll just use my kitchen counter. And I look at them and I'm like, well, that won't work. And this is the reason. I want you to hear me out because I know you'll understand. If someone uses your kitchen, you use your kitchen counter. So you put your paper, because when life happens, we dump it on the kitchen counter. And then we go, oh, I need to make dinner. So we move our pile from the kitchen counter to the kitchen table. And then we make dinner. And then we go, I need to set the table. So we move our pile from the kitchen table back to the kitchen counter. And then we eat dinner. And then we go, I need to do dishes. So we move our pile from the kitchen counter back to the kitchen table. And then we do our dishes. We have just done a lot of work. Sound familiar to anyone? Right? It happens all the time. So if you have a dedicated flat surface as part of your control center, that is your legal dumping ground where you can dump things even when life is happening, it's not going to get in the way and it will be okay. It gives you a safe place where all of it can be. And then the reason we end up taking paper and it ends up in the living room and in the entryway and in the dining room and in the kitchen, all the places, is because we don't have a dedicated spot for it. And if you have a dedicated flat surface as part of your control center, when life happens, it goes there and you don't have to move it until you're ready to clean it up. Okay, so flat surface to work, very important. Second is one calendar. One calendar, one calendar, one calendar, one calendar. Now, whether you have digital calendar or paper calendar, all that, that's actually a different talk. I'm so sorry, I can answer specific questions on it, but it's the bottom line is you don't want to have more than one calendar for daily life managing is what I'm talking about. So I know people say this all the time. They're like, well, Jen, that's okay. Because I have my church calendar, my library calendar, my school calendar, and my volunteering calendar, my work calendar, and they're all posted there. It's okay. And I look at them and I go, no, it's not going to work. And the reason is, again, the funneling. It is more stressful and you're more likely to forget something when you have 5 calendars you're looking at each day versus 1. So take the time 3 times a year, January, June, and August, so right now, and take the time and put all those calendars into one. And it takes stress off of you. Trust me on that. Next is one message area. You can see on here, I've told hands down the best message system I've ever found is Post-it notes. Post-it notes are great. You can stick them to the cabinet, the countertop, the wall. It doesn't hurt anything. So if someone says, hey, I need you to do this for me, write me a note, put it on a Post-it, and don't have a different message spot for each person. Have one spot at the control center where you have a message area. The other thing is files. Now, the only files at your control center are action-only files. So these are not like where you put your taxes from 2020 or where you put your insurance policies or anything like that. That's a whole different thing. But your action files, these are daily life managing files. So at minimum, I want you to have a file for each member of your family or each person in your house, a file for each person in your house. And then maybe you have a to be paid file or maybe a to be filed file. That's okay. So the way you can determine what files you want at your control center is over the next couple of days as mail comes in, look at what you deal with on a day in, day out basis. what does your daily routine, your daily life managing activities look like? So an example is I had a client that said to me, you know what, I need an investments file at my control center. She said, I deal with investments every day, all the time. They're coming in the mail that I'm doing. So we made her an investment file. Absolutely fine. I don't have an investment file at my control center. I have one in my filing cabinet for our family. I don't have one in my control center because I don't deal with investments in my daily life managing tasks. Okay. So some people might have a medical 2021 file in your control center. If you are constantly dealing with medical things, that's a good one for you to have there. So as you go through your paperwork, your mail, your daily activities, I want you to think about, what do I need? What kind of file do I need at my control center? You want at least one for each member of the family, because as you're going through mail, you're like, oh, I need to talk to my partner about this. Put it in his file. Put it in her file. Oh, I need to give my grown child this when I see him next. Put it in their file. Okay. So, oh, my child has, physical therapy exercises, put in their file. So people will get in the habit of, when they say, hey, where is this? You say, look in your file. Okay. And you have your to be paid and to be filed, because sometimes we can't file things because life happens. So those are your files for your control center. The last part of the control center is a garbage can. And this is another one. It's so true, but people say, I don't need a garbage can at my control center, Jen, because I have one under the sink across the kitchen. And you can probably guess, I say to them, but that's not going to work. And this is why. It's not that it doesn't work, but it's not the most efficient thing. Because this is the thing, and I picture this. You're going through your mail, okay? And you're standing at your control center, you have it all set up. And you're going through your mail, and you're opening one, you're like, okay, that's garbage. And then you go, okay, that one's I got to keep. This one's garbage. That one I got to keep. Then the dog needs to be let out, or your child yells, or the phone rings, or whatever it is, and you get interrupted, right? Because real life happens. And then you don't come back for an hour because things happen. You come back and you have a pile of garbage, and then you have your other part that you haven't opened yet. If you had a garbage can sitting right there, you'd be opening your mail and you'd be like, garbage, garbage, need to keep this, garbage, garbage. You get interrupted, you come back, and you just have your mail you have to go through. You don't have a pile of garbage. So that simple act of having a garbage can right by you makes a world of difference in real life when we get distracted. So try that. I promise you. Plus, there's so many pretty garbage cans now. You can get bamboo ones and flowered ones and stainless steel ones and hanging ones, and so many. So it's ridiculous how many garbage cans there are. So you can get one that matches your motif if you want, and it doesn't have to be big. Okay, so that's our control center. I say that because that is probably the biggest hotspot. That is the number one thing people ask me to help with, is to get their control center set. So if you need help with it, you just let me know. I'd be happy to help. But that just gives you information on that. Okay, so now kids areas. I don't know if there's anyone that has any specific kids areas or something that they're interested in. I don't know that a lot of you guys had little kids I was remembering when I asked you who was in your house. So again, if someone has a specific question on the kids area, I'd be happy to take it. If any of you have any questions on another hot spot, like if you're like, you know what, Jen, I'm good control center wise, I have that set. I have a different area I need help with. Go ahead and ask me that. You can put that in the chat if you want. I definitely would be happy to answer questions on any other areas. Again, these are kids areas is just the second most popular thing that people ask me about. So that's kind of why I put it there. But if you have another hot spot, this is a perfect case of, so someone says nightstand gets cluttered. 100%. Again, if you go through, what I want you to do is look at what, first of all, you want in your nightstand. Well, first thing you have to do is go through and declutter it, right? We talked about our steps of organizing. A nightstand's pretty small. So if you have 2 drawers, do 1 drawer at a time and declutter it first. Okay. Second thing is look at the categories of items you have in there. Okay. Decide, do they belong in there is the next thing. And then see, what do I want in that space? And don't just go, what do I want in that space? If your nightstand, think of what do you tend to drop there? If you're like, well, I don't want my, I don't know. I don't want pens in my nightstand. But the bottom line is that if they're always appearing in there, then you need to make a home for them there, because it's obviously something that is continually accumulating there. Okay, so that's why I say look at the categories of what is landing in your nightstand, okay, first, and see what are, sometimes we have odd things, and I understand that. I'd rather you put, so someone put like toothpaste, hairbrushes, water flosser, and again, if those are things you want, well, I'm sorry, that's in the bathroom counter, but if there's, look at what you want there first, and then the bottom line is making homes for it. There are so many different products. I'd say if you have a cabinet below your sink, you want to look, there are so many different things that you can do for containment if you want it hanging there. But the bottom line with each of these, especially the bathroom counter, is you want to contain the items, right? The hairbrushes expand. If you have a bin for them, then they're all contained in it. It is easier to not overdo it and get millions of them. Okay, your nightstand, again, the biggest thing is figure out what you want in there first and what keeps accumulating. Give it little home. Use drawer organizers. Those are perfect for a nightstand. Okay, the things that if you drop random things there, put them on top, because when they're on top, we see them and we put them away more easily. If they're in a drawer, we forget about them. So things that you're just putting there for an evening, put on top so that it's a reminder to get rid of it. Items left by visitors who say, keep it until my next visit. You could say, no, I need you to take it. That's one thing you could do. But things that you're going to, visitors, for if you have a guest room that they always stay in, and kind of give them their container, put their name on it. If they always are coming back, give them their little, make a home for their stuff, label it with their name, have it. But when that container gets full, say, you know what, I don't want any more of your stuff. But when we don't label it and we don't have that container for the specific person, we expand. So if it's things that are left by visitors, again, if they're always coming back, that's one thing. Give them a home. Give them a home, label it, but don't let it get beyond that container. That's a key thing, that containment principle. All right, so I'll answer a couple more in a second. But as far as maintaining, reminding of the things. Sorry, so much we talked about. Organization is broad, right? There's so much to be said. Organization is very personal. It's very, very personal. I want you to find your way. So when we're talking about maintaining this stuff, if it's your control center, schedule, I usually say like a Sunday afternoon, put it in your calendar, say clean off control center. Because when life happens during the week, if we have it scheduled, it's kind of a catch-all. And we can sit there and go, at least, it might get cluttered. The control center our legal dumping ground might get full during the week. But on Sunday afternoon, I can go grab my paper that's accumulated there, go through it, put it in the files, talk to your spouse or your partner or your kids about the things that you need to talk to. And then it's, it's maintained that way. So people say to me, you know what, Jen, I don't need to have a scheduled time to go through my control center. I'm going to do it every day. And I look at them, I'm like, well, that's really nice. Life is going to happen, and you're not necessarily going to get to it every day. So take care of it each week, just in case you need it. If you don't need it, great, but just in case you need it. So figure out your way. What do you struggle with? What is your hot spot? And then I want you to take the organizing principles and work on that spot, okay? The 5 principles of organizing, organize anything, anywhere. Using those. Get other people involved. Get other people involved. If you're doing your control center, tell them, hey guys, you know what? I need you to put all of the paper here. This is where all the paper is going to land. They're not always going to listen. I get it. You might have to be the one constantly picking up the paper and putting it at the control center. But I want you to communicate with them. Say, hey, we have this control center. This is where all the daily life managing paper information lands. Okay. Last thing is rewards. Reward yourself. If you're like, hey, I built my control center. I kept all the paper there this week. Yay me. Get yourself some ice cream. Get yourself a coffee. I don't know, watch a movie, whatever it is. But reward yourself. Reward your family. You say, hey, if we do this every day this week, we make sure the paper lands. On Friday night, we're going to go out to dinner. Whatever it is. Reward yourself. Rewards are powerful. powerful things. All right. Now, I gave you so much information, and I'm sorry because I just feel like there's always so much to be said. But what you can do is you can always contact me if you want help. I always start everything with a free, like a discovery call. So if you're interested in seeing how I can help or support you, you can just call and we can do it. Contact me and we'll do the discovery call, see if it's a good fit. And I always follow it up with a tailored quote so you can kind of figure out exactly how I can help you, if it would be a good fit or if it wasn't. But if you guys don't mind, this QR code, if you've used the QR code before, or if you have not, all you have to do is point your phone at this QR code and it'll bring up a link. And then you click on that link and it's just a form. This is a way to give me some feedback and gentle feedback if you don't mind. I absolutely would like to I'm always trying to improve and grow and things like that, but be gentle. You can be constructive, but be gentle. You know, I am human. But if you don't mind filling out this really quick survey, if you do, I will enter you into a drawing. And at the end of each month, I take all the different people that have filled out the survey for my speaking, and I do a drawing for a free hour of organizing. So I would love it if you wouldn't mind doing this. And I will also send the link for this to Janet. So if QR codes scare you, which they can be kind of intimidating, then you can do the link that Janet's gonna have also. So that if you don't mind doing that, that would be really, really helpful to me. And I'll go back to that in a second. And you can also I'm on all the social media, and you can follow me for information, encouragement on all those. Every day I post different things, and feel free to email me, call me, text me, say, hey, I don't know where to put my control center. Can you help me? Anything like that. So I'm happy to help. And I hope you were able to at least take one thing away from this and feel encouraged. I'm going to leave you with this. You're only allowed to take care of one thing after this. I do not want you to be like, okay, I have these organized principles. Guess what, guys? We're going to organize the garage, the kitchen, the living room, the bedroom, the master bath. You're going to have a mutiny on your hands, and it's not going to work. So promise me one little thing at a time, get that set, and then go on to the next thing. All right. So there you go with that. I'm gonna here's the QR code one more time. And someone did have a quick question. Let's see. How to deal with emotional decluttering of clothes and other. That's a hard. Okay. I will send actually to Janet a list of donation locations. I have a whole list of charities and things that you can donate all sorts of things to. Because one thing that I found helps is when you can donate to a charity that means something to you or to the person that passed away, it is so much easier to let go of those things when you know it's going to a good spot. So that is one thing I'll send to Janet with the thing. And again, because I know that, and again, another thing is I do know someone who worked in the higher ups of Goodwill, and he actually made me feel good talking to him, but he says they actually are really good with, they know how to recycle things that you and I don't know how to recycle. So when they don't use clothes and they can't sell them, they actually recycle the fabric. So it doesn't just go in a landfill. And they are actually able then to take the money they get from recycling the fabric and put it back in the mission and help the people. So that always made me feel a little bit better that they have expertise in recycling things that you and I don't have. And they have connections to do that. So it made me feel a little better about Goodwill, because I think sometimes they get a bad rap. But I will send that list of donation locations. And I actually have a whole nother talk on decluttering our hearts and homes about our emotional connection to stuff, because it's a powerful thing. And I talk a lot about that. You are not alone in that. That's a huge, huge thing. So I hope that helps you a little bit, Annette. I'm going to stop sharing. I don't mind answering more questions if people have it, but thank you so much for taking the time. I hope you're, so many times we're teched out and zoomed out. So thank you for taking the time to look at another screen and listen. And please ask me any questions that you have and contact me later if you need help. So I just want everyone to feel a little more encouraged and less alone as they're trying to tackle this crazy thing we call life. So thank you so much for having me and stuff. And thank you for asking me, Janet.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I did get a lot of information